Hello, and welcome to the 2012 League of Women Voters Election Forum. I'm the moderator, Murray Farber, a former newspaper and TV news editor and a member of the League of Women Voters. We're pleased that the candidates have joined us today so that you can learn where they stand in the primary election to be held June 5th. The League of Women Voters does not support nor oppose any candidate or political party. Before I introduce the candidates, I'd like to explain our format. We'll give each candidate a minute to tell you about themselves and an opening statement. Then we will get to the questions for 1 minute with 30-second rebuttals where appropriate. The order in which they speak was determined earlier by lottery. They were not given any peeks at the questions in advance. At closing, the candidates will offer a 1-minute statement. So here we go. The candidates with us today are Andreas Borges, Deborah Harkness, Larry Fortune, and they're competing for Supervisor District 2. So let's start with an opening statement by Andreas.
Hello, my name is Andreas Borges, and I'm a candidate for Supervisor for District 2. I'm an educator, I'm a family man, and it's been my pleasure to represent the residents of City Council District 2 on the Fresno City Council for the past 3 years. I'm running for the Board of Supervisors because I believe Fresno County needs a bold new direction. The business as usual is not working, and reforms are desperately needed. I have 3 issues that I'm going to champion on behalf of our community. Number 1, we must stop the revolving door at the jail. Number 2, we must spur economic growth and help create jobs. And number 3, we must reform the broken pension system. It's unsustainable. If we accomplish all these 3, this will be a huge success for our community, but I can't do it alone. I need your support, and I'd be honored to have your vote.
Deborah?
Good morning. My name is Deborah Harkness, and I'm running for the supervisor seat for District 2. I'm not a career politician. I'm a business owner. I've been a business owner for 30 years. I have no interest for a higher office. I'm running for the Fresno County Supervisor seat because I feel that our community needs a voice for everyone. I have extensive experience in business creation, property development, criminal justice, and social services. I have intimate knowledge of all the county systems and all of the funding resources. My priorities are public safety, building development, and access to community health services. I believe planning decisions must respect the wishes of the residents of the people that live in our community. I have practical solutions for Fresno County, inefficiencies, and I have broad knowledge of all the funding resources in our community. My plan is to end politics that benefit the few. Thank you.
Larry?
Good morning. My name is Larry Fortune. First of all, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. And I would like to tell you that I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Fresno. I was born and raised here, educated here, and I have been involved in this community for the last 40 years. I've been members of boards and commissions. I have gotten close to trying to help the Fresno County and Fresno County government, and now I would like to take that a step farther and actually serve on the Fresno County Board of Supervisors. There are some serious problems in Fresno County. Public safety is one of them, but the economy and jobs is probably the #1 problem in Fresno County. We have somewhere near 18% in the urban area of the city of Fresno of unemployment. In the outlying districts of the county of Fresno, we have upwards somewhere between 40 and 50%. I would like to bring a businessman's sense to the Fresno County Board of Supervisors to help solve the problems of unemployment, fund public safety, and take care of the pension problem.
Well, I've already heard comments about the criminals and safety. Let's talk about that some more. The public is concerned by the early release of criminals. We tried to balance the cash registers we have. We tried to we have the concern of the sound of the jail doors opening and closing. What are your recommendations on how do we handle this problem? And Deborah, I'm going to start with you first.
We need to start addressing the problem of recidivism and looking at why we have such a high rate of crime and why our criminals keep coming back. It is proven that rehabilitation costs less money and has better results than locking people up and punishing them. Our problem right now is that the prisons will not take our people anymore. Low-level offenders have a high rate of chance for rehabilitation. High-risk offenders have less than 10% chance of rehabilitation. We need to start focusing on recidivism, solving the problems that keep these people from going back into the system, and developing programs that would actually provide these people with skills, knowledge, and experience to become productive members of our society.
Larry, your thoughts?
Crime in Fresno is one of two elements. First of all, it's the revolving door policy at the jail. To open more floors at the jail so that we can house more prisoners and not release them early takes money. The other side of crime in Fresno is the underfunding and the understaffing of the Sheriff's Department, the District Attorney's Office, and the Probation Department. Unfortunately, the solution to these problems is money. I do believe that the County of Fresno has enough income to solve these problems. The County of Fresno does not have an income problem, it has a spending problem. I would hope to bring to the County Board of Supervisors plans which would save enough money. I have very definite plans to save ample money to open more floors at the jail so that we can stop the revolving door policy at the jail, and to properly staff and fund the District Attorney's Office, the Probation Department, and the Fresno County Sheriff's Department.
Andres?
People in our community don't feel safe. I don't feel safe, my family doesn't feel safe, and likely yours too. And a lot of that has to do with the revolving door at the jail. I've spent a good amount of time researching this issue and have a detailed 6-point plan on how to stop the revolving door at the jail. But there's two very interesting components that I have found that I'm going to champion. Number one, we need to re-examine the federal consent decree, which provides for the revolving door mandate. And the second is making certain that we go after our fair share of Assembly Bill 109 realignment funding in Sacramento. Sacramento can divest itself of these state prisoners and push them to the county, but it's not fair unless there's commensurate funding. And we need to make certain that we go after our fair share of this funding because we have the ability to keep these prisoners in jail, and only when we re-examine the consent decree and fight for our share of funding can the jail be secured and our families feel safe.
When we talk about money, one of the areas that comes up is the question about consolidation of services between the city and the county, especially in the islands. Should there be consolidation? If it's desirable, what services should be consolidated? Can you start us off, Larry?
There are a lot of areas, but mostly we're talking about public safety. We have tried before and have not made very much progress on this. There are several areas. There's dispatching of all public safety, fire, police services, ambulance services that could be combined into a single dispatch unit. Evidence lockers, crime labs could all be folded into and save money in the County of Fresno. There is tremendous precedence for this already. The city and the County of Fresno work cooperatively by jailing people at the Fresno County Jail. They work cooperatively with the district attorney. They work with the public defender. They work with the probation department. There is no reason that they can't work together on some of these other issues that would save money, enhance public safety just by the consolidation of them, and make Fresno a safer place to live.
It's a matter of distrust. Based on my experience. The county doesn't trust the city doesn't trust the county. I'm the only candidate here that can bridge that gap. Now I want to give recognition to some of the organizations that have helped facilitate the integration of services between those two entities. For example, prisoner processing, evidence storage, but things go awry with dispatch. The problem with this is I think there's a great amount of distrust and not enough sound, aggressive leadership that can bring these two entities to the table and negotiate a sound solution for the betterment of our community. I'm going to be that candidate that can bridge that gap between the county and the city and the county. This is an urban seat that roughly the top half of Fresno, and I believe that it's vitally important that whomever is elected to this office has the ability to work with everyone for the betterment of the taxpayers and our community. And that means making certain that if there's cost savings, that we go after it.
Deborah?
I think it's a matter of power. Both of the different entities are focused on keeping power in their own agencies. I think what we need to do is have an independent panel go over all of the different services that are provided by both agencies and determine a plan where we can prevent waste and duplication of services, and then bring the recommendations to both the city and the county boards, have them vote on consolidation of specific services. I also believe that the residents have a say in this. If the residents like what they have going on in their own communities right now, I think they should have the ability to voice that concern.
Let's talk about another area of services that's been in the news. What would you propose to do about the lack of mental health services and facilities in Fresno County, especially with its respect to its impact on the criminal justice system? How would you fund such services? And Andreas, I'm going to ask you to start.
Sure. This is a perfect example of how cost savings ultimately cost taxpayers more. Let's use the example of the hospital. Mental health services were cut in a particular area, and next thing you know, our emergency rooms are filled with folks that need help, but that's not the place where they're supposed to be getting it. So anytime you're in the public service business, you have to appreciate unintended consequences. If you cut pennies here, will it cost you dollars there? And that's an example of what's happened. We need to make certain that we look after the individuals that are needy in our community. We need to be fiscally prudent about doing so, but I think at the end of the day, we need to make certain that when we provide these services, that we're not shortchanging our community for the sake of a particular budget moment and forsaking the long-term health and prosperity of our community.
Deborah?
We have policies in place that prevent people from accessing services, even with budget cuts. If our county changed their policies and their referral options, we would be able to use several different mental health options that are available in the community that would share the cost, that would share the burden of providing these services. That would be the number one thing we have to do, is look at some of the policies, the referral system that they have involved, and make all of the county organizations work as a team instead of working in their silos.
In many instances, mental health is a good example of one of these many instances. The County of Fresno must find funds to invest in solutions. Right now, they're in a financial crisis mode. I think they have forgotten that their goal was to drain the swamp of alligators, because they're up their eyeballs in alligators. But it's time when we step back, took a business approach to investing money in problems, and mental health would be one of them. That a little bit of money invested could save a tremendous amount in the long run. We read recently about the two gentlemen who took over 1,300 rides to the hospital in an ambulance at about $400 a ride. That's a lot of money that could have been saved if we'd taken the time to sit down and talk to these two gentlemen, found out what their problems was. But that takes investing money. My plan at the County of Fresno would be to save the funds from operations, to invest in problems that would give us great returns in the future.
In his opening, Larry talked about the need for jobs and employment, and so let me ask a question about that. What can the Board of Supervisors do to bring more employers to the Valley, or other steps to reduce unemployment? And I'm going to start off with you, Deborah.
We need a balance of who we have investing in our community right now. We tend to invest the majority of our decisions and our money in the agricultural industry, who do provide a great service and economic growth in our community. But due to mechanization, there are fewer and fewer jobs, and many of the jobs are low paying. We need to start looking at what we have in our community right now. Healthcare industry is one of our top employers. We need to start looking at bringing in other businesses that would augment healthcare providers here. We need to start looking at our 18 to 25-year-old population and look at additional training, vocational training. Some of these kids do not want to go to college. We need to give them skills and training for a livable wage. And those are some of the areas that I would look at for development.
I have a two-point plan for economic development in the County of Fresno. First of all, the City of Fresno and the County of Fresno invest heavily in something called the Economic Development Corporation serving Fresno County. And it is, in fact, our number one procurer of jobs and promoter of jobs in Fresno. I would pledge to be a volunteer for that corporation, go to meetings with them, go to sales calls. When they had an interested client that was coming to Fresno and look around, I would make my office and myself personally available to clients. Second of all, we have to get government out of the way of the development of jobs. Government doesn't develop jobs, private industry develops jobs. And this comes back to another instance of being able to invest a little bit of money, which in this case would be we invest money in the permit process in Fresno County to make it simpler, easier, and more responsive to the person who's coming in here and trying to create jobs, so that jobs can be created more quickly, more efficiently.
Fresno County needs a more diverse workforce. As we try to attract folks to come into the valley, that's one thing that is top and center. And a lot of it has to do with education and the lack of vocational training. We've made great strides in this area, but much more needs to be done. As an educator, I'm a professor of law at San Joaquin College of Law, but if somebody wanted to go to an ABA accredited school, they'd have to leave. If somebody wanted to go to medical school, they would have to leave. If they wanted to go to a PhD program, they would have to leave. Some of our best and brightest continue to leave Fresno because of the lack of opportunities here. I think what's very important is that we promote vocational training, we promote advanced education so that we can diversify our workforce so that when folks do want to come set up shop in Fresno County, that there is enough strong, knowledgeable workers in the force that it can sustain that enterprise. And lastly, I think it's important that we create a business attraction task force. My proposal is that we get the mayor from each of the cities, as well as a representative from the county, to help sell Fresno County to the rest of the world and bring business here to our home.
When you talk about business, one of the areas that keeps coming up is this issue of the high-speed rail. And that argument is moving right on down the track. So the question is it good for California? Is it good for the Valley? Is it a waste of money? Is it jobs? Where do you stand on this? And I'm going to start with you, Larry, on the high-speed rail.
I've looked at it long and hard. I've read a lot of articles about it. I've studied it. I've read the business plans, the 3 different business plans they've come up with and changed each time. And I've come to the conclusion that California at this time cannot afford the high-speed rail. The most recent analysis of the 3rd business plan was done by a think tank in Palo Alto, and they've determined that based on the figures that the High-Speed Rail Authority has given them and the average cost of operation of every high-speed rail in the world of about 40 cents per passenger mile, that will cost about $1 billion a year to subsidize the operations of the high-speed rail, not counting the debt service and the initial infrastructure. When we've cut spending to the California University and junior college systems for 10%. We've cut funding to elementary through high school education. We can't house the prisoners, the criminals that we catch. I don't think it's time that we should go off and spend $100 billion and then subsidize that by $1 billion a year.
Andreas?
I represent the northwest area of the city, and that's where the proposed alignment would pass through for the high-speed rail. These are the folks that rely on me to advocate on behalf of their interests. And what I've experienced has been very disappointing. A project that cannot justify itself should not be supported. And my responsibility is to make certain that how is this going to affect our tax base? How are we going to relocate these businesses? Are they going to leave our community, and how is that going to affect our diversity within the workforce as well as our tax rolls? These are very simple questions with profound implications. I'm the only candidate here today that has personally written a letter to the High-Speed Rail Authority demanding information from the High-Speed Rail Authority on how this is going to impact our community. To date, we have not gotten all the answers that we deserve, but I'm advocating on behalf of my constituency, on behalf of my community. Sure, it would be nice to have that type of economic engine, but the question is, can we afford it, and what are we going to be giving up if it does pass through?
Deborah?
I base my decisions on reality. Reality is the state of California, the residents have voted for the high-speed rail to come through. The money has been allocated and sitting there waiting for us to use it, and the money is already in place for the next 10 years. Fresno County is going to benefit immensely from this rail project, and we cannot use the money for any other projects. It has to be used for the high-speed rail. Merced has already made it very clear if Fresno County decides not to take the money, that they will. So reality is we will benefit immensely from this project, and we have 10 years to figure out a way to make this economical and a way to pay for this.
Do I hear someone wanting to rebut? If not, I'm going to move right along. Last chance. Okay. Moving on to another topic. The debate over the Jesse Morrow Mountain hasn't even reached its peak yet. It's jobs, again, we're talking about jobs, it's environment, it's aggregate, it's the Native American concerns. What solution do you favor? And I'm going to start with you, Andreas.
The issue with the Jesse Morrow Mountain is one that reminds me of the complexities in dealing with the river area. I represent the Northwest area, which of course includes the San Joaquin River area, and the complexities of that. On one hand, you have environmentalists that want to protect this pristine area of our community, which is a jewel to our community. On the other end, you have some of the homeowners and some of the other businesses that are involved in the area. What I've experienced in public service is that until you have all the information, it is essential that you go through that process and become as educated as possible, because something that may appear to be clear one day in public service, unless you hear the other side, you're not going to be able to reach an educated conclusion. And that's been my philosophy as a public servant, is I'm going to make certain that I hear from everyone's standpoint, whether it be the Native American community, the business community, or the environmental community. I want to hear from everybody first before a decision is reached, because this is not one of those simple questions. There are a lot of competing interests, and I want to be as fair as possible.
Deborah?
What I know about Jesse Morrow Mountain is that it's going to impact our environment significantly. I know Fresno gets fined if their air quality is poorer than the standards that are allowed for the state. This will impact our air quality significantly. The company that's coming in is not a U.S. company, so the profits will most likely go to another country. And the amount of people that are going to be employed is very small. So I want to look at the environmental impact and the cost long term, and what it would cost us environmentally and financially if this project goes in place.
Very quickly, we're talking about mining sand and gravel. And the only place that sand and gravel comes from is out of the ground. And that's a pretty, not very glamorous commodity, sand and gravel, but let's face it, every house in America is built out of some form of sand and gravel. Every road we drive on, the floors that we're sitting on right now are made out of sand and gravel. We need it to continue our society, but the big difference, all the sand and gravel that we have built Fresno with has come out of the San Joaquin River. There's a big difference between the San Joaquin River and Jesse Morrow Mountain. When you're mining aggregate out of a river, you have a ready water source to wash that aggregate, to keep the dust down, and to keep the pollutants out of the air. Certainly it's a messy process and it has to be transported, but at least the dust thing is taking care of it. Jesse Morrow Mountain is exceptional in that it is a dry mining situation. It's probably 6 miles from the Kings River. Water will be a difficult thing for them to handle, and it will be a dusty, air-polluting operation. That's what feels.
I'd like to get into one last area. I can't leave this kind of discussion without talking about water. The valley and water go together. We've had heavy rains, we have snow, but water will always be a valley issue. And so I'm wondering how you prioritize such issues as new dams, water banks, gray water, recycling, conservation, controlling population density, concern over preserving various species of fish, And I'm going to start with you, Larry.
All right. Water can be reduced to a very simple thing. We only get water one of two ways in the San Joaquin Valley. Either Mother Nature brings it over in the form of clouds in the winter and drops it on the Sierras and it runs off, or we build canals around the Delta and we ship it from Northern California. We only actually lose water two ways. It either evaporates, and that takes all household use, everything gets processed, what have you, eventually ends up in the ground, eventually gets grown by plants, mostly agricultural plants, and evaporates. I think our goal is to acquire more water so that we can evaporate more of it in agriculture, in the agricultural industry. The only variable then is where we're going to get our water. I'm sorry, the second way we lose our water is it goes back to the sea. So we can either import more water from Northern California, or we can stop water from going back to the sea. I happen to be an advocate of more storage of water going back to the sea, which is going to eventually mean more surface storage and more groundwater storage.
Andres?
I served for 1 year in the federal court system under the Honorable Oliver W. Wanger. Wangers is hands down the preeminent water authority in California and perhaps even the United States. And I clerked for him personally. I spent that year working on water-related issues and can tell you firsthand how complicated the matters are. But to make things really simple from my position is that we need to make certain that while we look after the environment and we do everything in our power to make certain that we are responsible stewards of our community, we also have to understand the human element. How is this affecting our community? How is it affecting our agricultural community? These are vital interests to our state and to our nation, perhaps even on a national security level. And what I would recommend is that we make certain that we fight for our fair share of our federal allotment, that we increase storage, we still make certain that we minimize the amount that goes out to sea, but ultimately this is an enterprise that needs to consider the human element, not just the environmental element.
Deborah?
The water issue is very, very complicated, and I think we need a balance. We need to look at our environment, and we also need to look at our economic prosperity and how our water is used. That is not a 1-minute question or answer. There are many factors involved, and I think that we need to review all options with independent panels from each side of the debate. We also need to encourage more water conservation, more water storage. We need to look and see if our processes are efficient and they're maximized to hold the most water and to conserve the most water. I think that's where we're going to get the best results, is prevention of water loss.
Before we start wrapping up with Andreas, I just want to remind voters that the election for mayor, city council, and county supervisor are nonpartisan. That means in the primary on June 5th, any person can vote regardless of party. A candidate that receives a majority of the vote wins outright. If no candidate gets a majority, then the top 2 vote getters will appear on the ballot in the fall without regard to party. So, with that, Andreas, can you wrap it up?
Yes. It's been my pleasure to appear before you tonight, and I hope that as you consider who is the best candidate for Supervisor District 2, that you consider a few things. One, of course, is I've been serving my community for some time. I have a record that I stand behind and I'm proud of. I've represented the residents of District 2, and I look forward to representing the residents of Supervisorial District 2. There are 3 areas that I believe are most important. Is we need to stop the revolving door at the jail. We need to create new jobs and spur economic growth. And lastly, we need to reform our broken pension system. Fresno County can't sustain itself right now, and unless we do something bold, it will not have a good day tomorrow. This is our opportunity to do something about that. That's why I'm running for this office. I'm an educator, I'm a professor of law at San Joaquin College of Law, I'm a public servant, I'm a husband, and I'm a father. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to serve you, and I would be honored to have your vote.
Thank you. Deborah?
I am a business owner. I have financial analysis background for a major corporation, and for the last 11 years I've been working intimately with the courts, all the county offices, dealing with all the social issues that have been occurring in our community. I use evidence-based practices with measurable outcomes. That is the way any successful business runs, and that's the way our county needs to run. We need to make things efficient, we need to make things stable, and we need to promote strategic planning for long-range growth. That is why I am running for this position. I have qualifications in all of these areas. And I would appreciate your support, and I thank the Women's League of Voters for having me here today.
I too would like to thank the Women's League of Voters. It was nice of you to do this. I am a lifelong resident of Fresno. I've spent my entire life trying to make Fresno a better place to live. I would like to bring to the county of Fresno a businessman's sense of measurable goals and objectives to be applied to every department at the county of Fresno, so that we could see what our tax dollars are going for and what we're getting in return for our tax dollars. I think it's time that we had an audit of every department at the county of Fresno to see what their return to our taxpayers is. The jobs have to be created in this county. Public safety has to be enhanced. And the county finances have to be turned around. I think bringing a business sense to this will help do that. I've spent a lifetime trying to make this, as I said, a much better place to live, and I too would appreciate your vote on June 5th. Thank you.
Well, our time is up. I have a lot more questions I'd love to ask, but now on behalf of the League of Women Voters, I want to thank the candidates for sharing their views and the Community Media Access Collaborative for providing its facilities. Now it's your turn to be a good citizen and vote in the primary on Tuesday, June 5th. If you have any questions about voting procedures, the County Clerk's Office will be glad to assist. You can phone 559-600-8683 or email clerk-elections@co.fresno.ca.us. Thank you. Bye.